Welcome back to another episode of the MECCA, the podcast. I'm Mark Williams, and to my immediate right, your left, I have Thomas Davis to my immediate right. He's going to talk to you about what he does with Exodus program, one of the premier New York City basketball programs on national programs and Nike sponsored. And to my left, your right, I have JoAnn Pinnock. She's the head coach of the Mary Lewis School here in New York City. I think I said that correct, right?
Yep, Mary Lewis Academy.
Mary Lewis Academy, and she's actually one of the few programs in the high school level that has produced a couple of McDonald's All-Americans in the last couple of years, which is a tribute to her and her program. And we're here to discuss New York City basketball from the women's basketball perspective. Again, welcome guys to our program here, the MECCA podcast. Appreciate you guys. And today what we have is a little unique. We have an AAU director and we have a high school basketball coach, and we're basically going to try to solve, or at least bring some suggestions on why and how we can solve the basketball problem here in New York City as it relates to the women's basketball program. First and foremost, what's wrong with New York City basketball? Let's go to my left, Joe.
What's wrong with New York City basketball?
Where do you begin?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that we actually are a solid city with a lot of talent. We have young ladies that can play at all different levels. I just think that as a group of well-educated, knowledgeable coaches, we need to be all on the same page, and we need to start collaborating and doing things within the city with our young ladies together. As there, is too many outside influences, different cities, different states coming into New York, and there's enough of us here to make it happen.
Okay. Podcast over. No. Thomas?
I think some of the same things she just said. I think that we have a lot of people that's in the New York City area that doesn't really understand the different levels and the dynamics of the players that we have here, the players that we house at home. I think that if more people took lesser roles and back seats in different environments, that the kids would be better and the city would have a better showing overall.
I think you guys said a lot of good things. I'm going to pick up on some points that you guys picked upon. Just for those that are unaware, we reached out to several other AAU programs and other high school coaches, and due to their schedule conflict and their willingness, not to necessarily be put on the stage at this particular time, is just you guys, which is a good mix for us, again, because you guys are two of the most opinionated program directors here in New York City, and I think that most people value you guys' opinion. You mentioned outsiders coming into New York City. New York City is considered the Mecca of basketball by many. Why are we not in a position where we can control our own narrative here in New York City? Because we have maybe 60 to 70 AAU programs from the girls' side. Why can we not have certain things here in New York City that other people have in different cities?
I think, so when I started out, there was about six major organizations. Exodus, myself, Liberty Bells, Silver Bullets, Gauchos,
What's sad is that you can name those guys.
Yeah, and Gazelles.
Can you name them now?
So I could name them now, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think it's good. We gave young ladies, all the young ladies, a place to play. But I think that that's what people forget. So my program, Positive Direction, I know where we stand. So when I have young ladies that are capable of playing on that level out in Kentucky and Tennessee, and that's where we go. But when we don't, and we play then more within our local realm. Last year we had a young lady that needed to play on that level, and we put her with another program. I don't think that some of us that are doing this have the best interest of the young ladies, and I think outsiders from other cities and states realize that, and then that's how they get in, and they see that weakness, and they come in and they take the kids. And I think that that's something that we really have to work on. I think there's enough of us that are directors, like ourselves sitting here, where the directors need to take control. Sometimes I think some of the directors in some of the other programs allow their coaches to take control. And I know at my program, if I think that, or I feel strongly about something, then that's what we're going to do. And there is no talking to me about that. There's certain things that I stand firm on. So I think that the directors, if the directors from all these 60 programs got together and sat in a room and said, okay, listen, this is how we're going to handle things, I think that we would be able to build better relationships. I think we've also given a lot of control to the parents. Years ago, parents didn't come on trips. You know, we were right there in front of St. Clair's in a white van. We all got in and we went to the Penn State tournament. That's run by Blue Chip. And now it's you have every parent on every trip with you and trying to micromanage. And I think that that's something that, again, directors have to take control of. A player should not be able to leave a program in July and go play with someone else. But we can only control that. Directors can only control that. You know, it should be a year-to-year thing. If you signed up with Exodus, then you finish with Exodus. And that's how you would teach these kids how to stay at colleges too and stop transferring so much and thinking that, you know, because I don't know about your job, but I know with my job, if I don't like the way something goes on Monday, you have to show back up on Tuesday or you don't have a job.
That's how it works.
I think the hardest part with people and not letting outsiders come into New York is people in New York are afraid of the idea of the way things are in the city currently. And when I say that, I mean, like for us, for an example, if I feel like we're the top team in the area right now, and we should have some of the top players that play for us, a person might feel like instead of letting her play for Exodus, let me go let her play for another team outside of the area where I feel like this person can help me in the long run versus letting her play for somebody back home that I know personally. Why they let that happen, I don't know. But I think it's happening way too often than it should be.
Could we in New York City with these 60 programs that you probably can't name half of them anymore because so many programs popping up on a daily basis, could we avoid the trips that you guys make and have a big type of program here in New York City where all the college coaches came here?
Absolutely.
So why is this room not full of directors and AAU coaches where we could sit down and have this conversation? Is that part of the problem?
The fear of the unknown. The fear of if I stay right here locally and we have 24 of the top programs in our Northeast region that stay right here, and we bring other people in our area to come and college coaches come, where do I stand locally between the other programs here? Am I still the alpha, or can I just go on the road and travel with my team, and whatever happens be the unknown, and no one hears about it?
So, has PD ever played Exodus?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Has PD ever played all the programs here in the New York area? Not all,
probably not.
I mean the big program.
Oh yeah, we played Sparks, we played Exodus, and I think if you are a true program director and a true coach, you know where your team stands. So for me to take my projected team that I'm going to have this year, that's going to be 16U, and say that I'm on the same level as Exodus this year is a lie.
So, but you're looking in yourself. Do you think that most program directors and high school coaches
Absolutely
do
not.
So
because otherwise he'd have the best players this year. He'd have all the girls from every high school team playing with Exodus because you know that Exodus right now is the top team in the city. So my freshman is going to play with Exodus. This freshman's going to play with Exodus. That freshman's going to play with Exodus. But then you still have somebody over on the other side of town or somewhere with, oh, no. My kid's not going to play with Exodus. But why?
But that's a false sense of reality for that program.
Correct.
Because they're not doing what's best for the kid then.
Correct.
So this is the biggest thing that we have. So obviously we're a Nike team. Right. Nike is the top league right now for girls basketball. Right. It's big. It's powerful. The platform itself is strong. Right. There were other Nike teams in New York. That changed. We're literally the only team in our area. Right. If I had the best players, or I'm not gonna say the best players, if I had additional pieces every year that might have played on other teams for the last 2 years, I feel like we stand a chance to go the distance to win the whole thing.
But why is New York not supporting you?
Because it's like this, it's like the crabs in a barrel mentality. If I support them and they win, what credit do I get? I had a program director tell me, what can we do about the name and who's going to coach? I said, well, right now we have the leverage so that the kid come play with us. This is what she's going to gain out of it. Well, then that'll make our program look weak if we did that. I said, right now, do you feel like you look strong?
Right.
Well, it's not about that. We have this player. People are going to come see her.
Right.
Therefore, they're going to come see other kids. Well, that kid that everybody came to see, there was not one other kid on the team that was getting recruited by the same school she'd be recruited by.
So they're not losing anything. They're not losing anything.
The kid loses something.
Right. The kid herself, but the program's not losing anything.
The program loses nothing. The kid loses accountability, structure, understand how to play hard at all times, understanding that it's not just all about you, it's about the other people that's around you. So now when that kid goes to college, she's going to suffer in the long run.
Right. But they should support, if he's the number one guy, or he's the number one program.
Well, that's my opinion, because
Right,
there are people out there that'll say
it's going to get shot. It's going to get shot.
that's not going to go over well.
But
If some consider his program to be the number one, all right, it would be in New York's best interest to put its strength and power and marketing or whatever behind it and push it to where the New York City can be deemed a hotbed of basketball talent.
Because my thing is, it's a situation where by me saying his program is number one doesn't mean that my program isn't also the best program in the city in other ways.
Right.
So you have to see, like, what is everybody's program here for? Like, his program is a platform for these girls to play on to get to the next level.
Right.
You know, yes, they do other things. You know, you come to Positive Direction, and Positive Direction is for that kid that could probably never even be on Exodus's team. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's where we start from. So it doesn't make one program better than the other. It's just what is the need of your child? And as a parent, you have to be real with yourself. So if your kid is a Division II kid, a low Division I kid, then you may want them to play with Positive Direction. Right. Because Exodus is going to go to those big tournaments where I just had a conversation with a parent the other day. Do your research. The colleges that are those low Division I colleges, they don't have those budgets to travel to all those tournaments. Maybe they can go to one or two, but they're expensive just for the colleges too. Okay. So if your kid is trying to get recruited by, you know, a low D1 school or a Division II school, you're better off going to another event where those coaches can drive. They don't have to spend the money. They don't, you know, the book is a little bit cheaper. So your best interest is not to play with Exodus. It may be to play with Positive Direction.
It sounds like you are one of the few program directors and high school coaches that understand this standpoint. That just like in baseball, there's major leagues, there's AAA, there's AA, and there's single A. And not that your program is on different level, every program on a different level, but they all try to feed the major league team. Right. So whether you try to work on certain things at a single A level to get you ready for the AA level, and you work your way up. It sounds like everyone thinks at their major league level.
Everybody don't think that. It's beyond think. Everybody really in their heart feels like they're at the major leagues.
So it sounds like the adults are the problem. Well, let's trickle down theory.
That's beyond the adults and the parents together is a bomb waiting to explode every day.
And just to kind of talk a little bit more about how that works, I think that when you said, the minor league is trying to feed, I think a lot of the minor league coaches don't really know the process. So they can't think any other way because they're not putting in the work either to find out how college coaches work and what tournaments they're going to be at and who's going to be at those tournaments. They just hear, just like the kids do on social media, that they're going to Kentucky and Tennessee. So that's where I got to bring my team. I got to bring my team to Kentucky and Tennessee. And, you try to have that conversation. I'm not saying I went to Chicago and Tennessee and Kentucky and all these places with teams that belong there. The young lady that's at Minnesota now, Jasmine Brunson, that's where she got the majority of her scholarship offers from. But that was the last team, and she's a junior now, that I took to those tournaments. For the last 3 years, I knew what I was working with, and I knew what my goals were. So I think you just have to be honest with your kids that you coach and their parents. Some parents don't want to hear that, but you're really doing them a disservice because you're wasting their money. That's not going to happen for them out there if they're not that kind of kid.
Is there a pride issue that kicks in, you think, with people at that point?
Absolutely. There's a big pride issue. That is the biggest issue, is that people feel that if they have the conversation like I just had, like, I am not worried that after this podcast, like, people aren't going to want to come to Positive Direction because I'm not as good as Exodus. If that's what you got out of the podcast, then
so be it.
So be it.
Yeah, so be it. Yeah.
You know, but that's not, I think people have to be secure enough in themselves and the work that I know I put a lot of work in with my program and the high school. Like, even as far as the high school level is concerned, you know, I'll be the first one to say it. I mean, I know we're not calling names, but there's a very good high school women's program out there. And when I took the job at Mary Lewis, that's who I modeled myself after, because you want to model yourself after winners. And if you don't do that, you're not going to win. And you know what? I won a championship.
Right.
So you have to humble yourself and say, okay, let me not think I can do this myself, and let me look around and take notes.
Okay.
And I don't think enough people take notes.
Do people in New York City, do the teams in New York City that can play each other, like what they just did, they just played a team the other day that they didn't have to play.
No reason.
Right? It's everyone doing it.
No.
It's teams
So
say,
that's my question.
You have a top team, I have a top team.
So that's my question. Why are we running from competition?
Why are the coaches running?
Coaches,
from it?
yes.
I don't know. I don't understand how, as a coach, you can feel like you have a top program if you don't want to play against what's considered the best for whatever reason, whether it be at their gym, your gym, neutral.
Right.
Or teach your kids what the best is. So I know, you know, obviously this year I'm down. It's not a development year. But you still want to play the same. Like, my schedule did not change from last year when I had Jordan Nixon, or the year before when I had Daniel Patterson.
Right.
I kept the same schedule. I went to the same places. I wanted to play the same caliber teams, because if not, then you're not going to build back up. So my kids that are in the school now, or that are thinking about coming into the school, they don't want to play cupcake teams. I mean,
So you're saying, if your players think that they're really nice, let me show you what really nice is.
Correct.
All right, and now you just got thumped. All right, so this is what nice is, right?
Well,
Same thing when you're in too, right?
People will play a national schedule, right, and play nationally ranked teams. I give them that, but won't play the best team in their backyard, or what's considered the other best team in their backyard in New York to get the same national presence. Is weird. So they'll go play a team somewhere else,
Right.
that has national substance, and bring that tournament, that area, whatever, some sort of success.
Right.
But won't do that here in New York.
So I'm gonna put this out there now. In 4 years, we should have a program, a tournament here in New York City that attracts great high school programs and then great AAU programs. Is that a pipe dream?
We should have that every year. That's a dream every year.
that should be like.
That should be a standard.
That's something that I try to put out every year. Every year since I've been running Exodus, I've reached out to directors of other programs and said, listen, let's put together this event and let's all do it together. And we'll get the college coaches to come here on a date outside of the dates that I'm obligated to play.
What stopped the money?
Every year I get, my parents don't want to do it. My board don't want to do it. We promised them we're going to go on this trip. We promised them we're going to take them to this other place. It's never money. You don't spend no money.
No, money as far as the director splitting the money, the breakdown.
But that's the easiest thing. I say, hey,
that's
you
the
should
easiest
spread it out,
part.
do it throughout the people who are there. They'll rather go somewhere else, spend money, lose money, than stay here and build something right here for our kids in our backyard.
It's even to the point where every year I have a fall and a spring tournament here for young kids. I can never field enough young girls teams.
Why? Because they're away at different tournaments?
No, just because people don't want to support each other.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
They're not gonna come, and it's not like where I play my high school games where there's no parking, so to speak. I've heard, but we have a parking lot here. We have places to sit. I mean, to me, it's amazing because I can do boys tournament twice a year. We get plenty of boys teams and they come in, but no, we're not going to go play in her tournament because she may take one of our kids, or they may.
Well, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to put your team on.
Yeah.
So what, do you practice and play in the dark?
No, they play somewhere else.
They go somewhere else. So instead of coming here and playing in a tournament, they'll go somewhere else. So like I run a fall league and a spring league for boys teams to come in, and all the boys teams come in. Like we get teams from all over. But when you go put out the paperwork for the girls teams, I'll get Dom from Exodus who will hit me and say, we in. And then those 60 other teams you're talking about, we don't
Can't find them.
Can't
In the
find
dark.
them.
You know what I get? This is the biggest thing that I've found that we get now. Oh man, I wish you would have told me earlier. I'm committed. You committed this
My
early?
schedule is.
So if I give you like, it's 2000, but you're just 19. So we do.
Might have to do it 2 years out.
I say 2021.
It might say,
on March 3rd, 2021.
It might say I'm committed, but I got to talk to
to my board.
Yeah.
And we got to check the budget. We got to make sure.
It's free. I'm knocking everything out the way.
Look, I've tried that.
Word?
I've tried the look.
We did
it's
just
free
ref
for
fees,
all
yeah.
of your teams. Nobody pay anything. It's free. It's free for your parents to get in. We just got to get the college coaches to come up here. Oh man, we would have, but we already committed to something.
So New York is not supporting New York.
Never.
No.
Okay, so why are you the only one of the few females on that level, on this level, in New York City basketball?
I don't know. And I've tried to get other females involved. I think it's tough sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you, like probably when I first started out, and I'm old, but I've been doing it 28 years. So when I first started, it was more difficult than it is now.
Right.
Now it's more or less like, okay, I'm here and they know I'm not going anywhere. But it's either one of two things. The young ladies are that good that, then they go on to get college positions, which is great.
Right.
But there's a lot of young ladies that are trying to find their way. And I've spoken to several young ladies who say they're trying to get into the coaching thing. But it's hard because it's a man's world. You walk into the CHSA meeting and the majority of them are men sitting there, but you have to hold your ground. I'm a firm believer, there are ways of doing it and you have to do it professionally, but you have to hold your ground. So there's nobody, and that's why I said there's nobody's going to tell me that positive direction doesn't belong in the mix. But again, it's every day where, there's somebody coming along who's, well, why is she doing this? And I'm definitely not one of those people that, is women. I do believe in women empowerment, but I think that there's got to be a happy medium because obviously from my high school bench, I have all males as assistants. Right. And they do a great job. So you do need the balance. You do need men involved in the women's sports, but I do think that you need more women involved because they just need role models.
Right, so if I flew in from Mars and I landed in New York, you would probably be, at this point right now, the highest, most notable female person in AAU high school basketball in New York City. You would agree with that? It's hard for you to say it, but yeah. Would you agree with that?
Right now, where we're standing, yeah, of course.
Where we're standing right now.
Of course.
Why do you think there's a lack of female participation on the women's level? Girls level on this level.
That's interesting. I don't know. I try to get the players to come back all the time and be involved in some sort of capacity. I reach out to them and talk to them about branding and being a part of it and how much they can do. That's something I'm still trying to figure out every day. I really don't know. I don't have that answer.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I spoke to a few young ladies that are in their 30s now, I guess, that when I first started coaching, they were playing. And they just feel like it's a rough road. Will they ever get that head coaching position? Like some of them are assistants at high schools or AAU programs and where it's male dominant. And I tell them you just have to, some of them are also unrealistic themselves. They think they're just going to walk in and because they're there and they scored and they were this all-around player when they played that they're just going to automatically get that respect.
That's what we did by that culture we created 10 years ago for them, thinking that the empowerment, the microwave society. So
some of that is part of it, and I do try to speak to them and tell them there is a place for you, but you have to also earn that place.
Right.
So I think some of it too is the emotional side. Females are a little bit more emotional, and I think that once they get over that and understand, hey, listen, I can be this top coach, then anything's possible. But some of them, I think, want to bypass that. The work part. Yeah. So that's where we're at. But I've tried to have several conversations because I think it's important. I think me having daughters now, by the time they get to that age, I'm going to be, older and I just want to be a mom. So I would like for that generation to take over and do what I did for the young ladies that I coached.
That's dope.
So even with the whole college thing, going to college games, you try to get the young ladies to understand that you have to support what you're doing. So we choose to take them to all kinds of college games. We went out to the Stony Brook game the other day, where we just know the assistant coach there, to games where actually we have kids, either alumni of Mary Lewis or alumni of PD that play in games. But you'd be surprised how many young ladies don't go and support the college game or the WNBA games, and that's really where it starts. So if we want women's athletics to build, then we have to build it as women and as young ladies. And I think sometimes even as far as the parents, like, they don't get that part. It's just certain things. I think social media has kind of taken over. So that's whatever they see on social media, they think is law.
A kid could create a video of 30 seconds of them playing, and you would think that player is something that she's not.
Yeah, they make every shot when they do those.
And the kid look amazing, and then you know what? I'll go see the kid play.
Right.
And I'm sitting there waiting for that 30-second clip to come on. That never comes on.
They're spliced together between 14 of the...
Between 1,000 games. And oh my God, you like this? Okay, she got it. And it never comes.
Why is it natural for an AAU person and a high school coach not to have a communication line?
I think I speak to, in the New York area, 3 high school coaches, head coaches. She's one of them. Because they feel I'll let her answer it. I'm gonna answer it from my end. I think it's like a fear of who's gonna be more important.
So it's the adults' pride stepping in again.
It's always the adults' pride. I think the fear of who's going to be more important, who's going to have a bigger voice. So I can call a high school coach and say, hey, coach, just wanted to let you know, this is how she finished the summer. This is what I thought she needed to work on. These are things that she needed to pick up on. She's added this to her game. I don't know what you guys do, but I was proud of her in this sense. Are you guys okay with me stopping by your practice? Can I? Or you guys going to have open? Do you mind me coming to the gym? What's your preseason like?
They have a problem with that?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to certain practices. I'm not going to put them out there. But what's your preseason like? Because I want to kind of help her when you guys aren't doing things to make sure she's ready for the season, because this is her overall plan. And I might we do a good job at developing over here. Don't worry about it.
Do you think that's a common situation? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I've had girls from all different AAU programs play at Mary Lewis. And I'm very thankful for all those programs. To the point where, it's senior night or something special. And I'll say to the young ladies, make sure you invite your AAU coaches. I think that everyone is important in the process. My place to be important is at home. So my kids and my husband know that. I don't need to be important at work. And I think that that's what people fail to realize. I don't think that, it's like he said, everybody wants to get credit, and I'm still trying to figure out what the credit is, because after 28 years, there's no big check that comes.
No special reward.
I work here at this elementary school. I don't get it. Like, it's definitely something that takes place, and I'm not too sure. I can't even answer it because I don't know.
These are adult trophies.
Yeah.
What is the adult trophy though?
The idea.
There's nothing tangible.
I'm gonna give you an example, right? I told somebody this other day. I run Excellence NYC for a different reason. My cousin ran the program. He passed away. I took it over, and I felt like it's important for me to keep this legacy rolling as long as I possibly can. If you could find one picture of me at a senior day, a sign-in day, anything, I'll pay you for each photo you find. I make sure I do not show up for a reason, because I do not want it to be about me. I want to stay back in the process.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too, but I don't understand why you guys aren't communicating.
But you have
because if I'm a high school coach, I need people like you
to
help me.
They don't feel like that.
Right.
So
I'm telling you on camera, I need people like him.
Right, but
I need Harry, Walter Welsh. I need them all. And this is what I don't understand from a high school standpoint.
If you want to win, you need
Correct.
to.
They don't feel like that. They feel like you have high school coaches that speak of AAU as if it's the worst thing that happened. The power needs to go back to the high schools. I don't understand what that means.
So I'm gonna touch on that a little bit. So I'm one of those people at this point that does, for a certain extent, think that not the power, but I'm not against the way the NCAA kind of wants to move things around, and I'll tell you why. because we've grown from those 5 teams or 6 teams I've named before to the 60 teams. So now you know what I deal with as a high school coach? Well, my kid is choosing between your school and this school and this school. You know, well, what's the best deal?
Deal.
Yeah, deal.
Yeah,
What you mean deal?
Deal.
Like money wise?
Deal.
Yeah, money,
like, what's the best deal? And can I be on your coaching staff? Because I'm looking to see if I can, you know, get into high school coaching. So it's like,
I don't do that. I don't do that.
no, that's not him. You know, although I did offer, but he doesn't want to. You know, it's just one of those things where it's those smaller programs, those programs that are up and coming, and you see it, you know, and it's unfortunate because that's what gives that tainted AAU high school. I was on both sides of it. For years, I was just the AAU coach.
Right.
And my girls could go wherever they wanted high school-wise. I didn't care. I had Jaleesa George, who played at Christ the King. Corinne Robinson played at Mary Lewis. So I had girls all over the place. I had a bunch of girls that played at Francis Lewis High School. My thing was like him. Like, I don't need to be there. Like, yeah, I was in the stands for senior night, and, you know, but it's not about us. It's about them. And even as the high school coach on senior night, it's not about me. Right. It's about them. It's about their parents, the fact that they finished out 4 years or however long they were there. And it's just to the point where now there are people that are coming on board or have come on board in the last few years, and, you know, their goals are different. So they will approach a high school coach and say, you know, or they'll tell a kid, no, don't go there. And to me, it's like, I've always been a firm believer in kids choose their high school. I am not going to go sit at a CYO game unless it's my daughters or my sons. I'm not going out there, and I'm not going to sit down and say, you need to come to Mary Lewis because of this, 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 and this. No. If you can't figure out why you want to play for me and why you want to be at Mary Lewis, that's it. Because you know what? College is where those coaches are going to sit there and they're going to recruit you, and it's going to be, that's when you want to do this. And that's what's going on too. You know, 6th, 7th grade, you have high school coaches sitting down with parents and kids to do what? Like, and it's not just Catholic school, it's all levels. It's public, it's private, it's charter. It's happening across the board. So it's not just within my league, it's all over. They're taken away from that younger age.
If I look at the stand,
are they creating monsters?
Yeah, if I'm a 6,
they're not creating them.
They're already there.
The monsters are alive and moving.
So if I'm a 6th grade and I see you in the stands looking at my game,
you have a 6th grader that says,
I'm like, I'm the shit.
You have a 6th grader that says, and I'm going to try to jump into this. You have a 6th grader, let's say 6th, 7th, or 8th graders. We started these younger programs, these younger teams, right? Because it got that much harder to get kids when they got to high school. You have a 6th grader that decides, I want to play up with the 7th graders because my daughter should play up and show that she can compete with those kids. The 7th grader that still feel the same way, the 8th grader that feels the same way, right? But none of these kids can truly dominate their own age group, right? So they want to play up to get some sort of notoriety to say, I'm better than the next kid. Now, the kid themselves does not want to play up.
So,
The kid don't want to play up.
So the parent is forcing him or her, or in this case her, to play up.
The parent wants her to play up so that the parent can say to their friends, peers, or whoever, my child plays up, and this is what she does while playing up.
So in essence, what I'm hearing, and I've heard, you know, we've done the podcast for some time, is the adults, and more adults are the problem.
You have a kid, and I asked this question. If I took Exodus NYC, all the players, and maybe I'll do it this spring, and put them all in the gym and said, play 5-on-5, we only got 3 games, and you guys pick the teams, how many kids won't get picked on a team amongst their peers?
Right.
And how many parents will feel offended if their child did not get picked?
Well, they all will be offended, the parents.
Yeah. Why? You're being voted amongst the coaches are not voting on the teams. If the kids are voted on the teams, you're being voted amongst your peers to say you're this level or this level as a player. I think you're a good player, so I want you to play. I don't really know you yet, so you're going to go sit over there, and you got to earn your stripes.
Yeah, a lot of people will be pissed off.
But you know what's happening when you do that? That's why these kids can't play on the court. That's why these parents are in the stands, and it's no longer cheering. It's Pass my child the ball. You're looking my child off. If your child is getting looked off on the court, if I call a play, if I say run blue, and the play is whatever it is, if your child gets looked off by her teammate, your teammate don't think that she's good enough. And that's her decision and right as a player of knowing her personnel, saying, I don't think that she's going to help us hit the shot right now.
So that parent then leaves your program. We're just drawing a
that's how that
hypothetical.
happens.
So that person leaves your program, goes to another program.
Who's promising her that her daughter is going to be able to be looked at as the one player that she idolized in the last program.
So that's going to water down the whole concept.
And now you got the answer of why New York City is the way it is right now. That's why it's 99 teams in New York, because there's always that one person that feel like that.
And there's so many options. Like there's so many places and people not working together. That's probably where they started from. Now you're not happy because your kid isn't playing.
Right.
Now you're going to go somewhere else. It's something that's, we're allowing, like I said, as the adults, the directors, we're allowing that to happen. And I just think that at some point we're going to have to get in a room and say, hey, listen, this has to stop.
Do you think that's possible?
I think it is. I think it's possible to tell everybody, look, let's decide on what the ramifications of things should be moving forward. I think that it's healthy when you're recruiting players. I know there's certain kids I'm going after, sparse different teams I'm going after, but when we get a player to come in our program, if she decides she wants to leave for whatever reason, with some programs, I have that relationship where they'll call and say, "Hey, look, this kid came and she." Some don't. I mean, it's to me. I don't really make me mad. It is what it is. It's a part of the game. I just think that the kid themselves don't really gain as much.
So there's no order in this Wild Wild West, right?
There's a little bit. It's a little bit. Not as much. Yeah, it's a little bit.
There's a little bit. There's not enough though. I don't think that the respect is there. I think that there needs to be some kind of respect amongst the programs, so that there is some. And quite honestly, and I know this probably isn't going to go over well, but if the programs that are more dominant in the city sit down, even if those other programs don't want to come on, if we can just get about 5 or 6 people on board, those other programs don't stand a chance.
Okay. And I'm going to go out on the record. I reached out to those 5 or 6 programs, and again, due to scheduling conflicts or whatever the case might have been, they're not here. I think that what needs to happen is that we need to have a round table. And I'm saying we, and I'm saying because I'm a New Yorker, first and foremost, to establish us as that MECCA, particularly from the girls basketball standpoint, is we have the talent here. I've seen it. You guys see me. I'm in almost every gym. I don't know how I'm working, but I'm still in every gym doing X, Y, Z, and I see the talent. We just need to consolidate it.
On the women's side, there is no major contract like the NBA.
Right.
So if you're not allowing your daughter to be in an environment that's going to get them ready for life, then you're doing them a disservice as a parent.
Agreed.
My daughters are young. I just sat down with both my daughters on night it snowed, and we watched the story about Immaculata College, Mighty Max. My daughters need to understand, like, where did this start from? We don't need to be in a gym training. We need to understand the history. We need to understand, like, where are you going to move on from here? Then I made them look up the ladies where they are now. One of them was a very successful college coach, Lafayette, So they need to understand that. And there's not enough of that being done because everybody's getting caught up in the social media part.
As far as what? As far as
making New York City.
We're going to make a bunch of phone calls. We're going to have a round table discussion.
I think the biggest thing is like getting people, parents and kids are being lied to, and it's okay.
By whom? Other parents or adults?
I mean, you have people lying to kids about colleges offering them scholarships. You have people lying to kids about where they stand in their class as far as recruiting. It's to the point now where when I hear it, if I address it, I'm the bad guy. Right. But you'll overhear a kid or overhear a parent, overhear somebody saying something.
But why are you the bad guy for telling the truth?
Because nobody wants the truth. So it's easier for me right now if I truly wanted to dominate, like really break things up and really control the market. People are making it easy to do that because they want to be told certain things that I just refuse to do.
So moving forward, for us to be New York City again, we need to curb the behaviors of the adults.
No, you need to allow kids to be kids and allow them to be treated amongst their peers and have it in a controlled environment. Like for New York City to be as safe as it is today.
And nobody's at the park.
And kids are not allowed to go outside by themselves.
Right.
And then where I grew up, you went outside, it was a battle zone.
Right.
And you knew that. But my mother said, going out the door, you have a fight today, you want to take care of business.
Right.
Your child will go outside today and they will never have an altercation ever, but they are not allowed to go outside. So these kids don't know how to be kids amongst other kids. It's a weird situation. If I take 10 kids and I sat them in this room, we walked out there and closed the door, if they didn't know each other, the room would be dead silence because they'd just be on the phones.
Right.
Right? So on the basketball court, that part is worse. And then in New York City, you have adults with certain players that wrap their arm around that kid so tight, they want to hold on because they want to be associated with that player.
It's so bad even on trips. You go on trips and you try to get the kids just to go out to dinner, like when we, high school or Positive Direction, either one, when we go away on trips. Okay, this is what time we're gonna eat. Everybody's gonna meet 5 o'clock for dinner. And like I have to, at this point, I have to tell parents, okay, the parents are gonna sit over there. Like parents don't even allow their daughters, or even sons, to sometimes get that unstructured free time with their teammates. So it's hard because the parents are right there all the time. And not that you would allow anybody, I mean, I know me personally, allow anybody's child to act a certain way, but let them be kids. Let them understand what it's like. Have kids for to a room when you go on an AAU trip to make them understand that when they get to college and you're in a dorm, you have to wait to take a shower. It's not like at home where you're the first one in the shower. It's just nowadays, like, that's not being taught. It's not being allowed. And again, it's because of the adults. It's because of the adults.
We went from one of the toughest cities in the world to one of the nicest. Every kid is walking their dog with flowers in their hair. So it's like, how do you get that back? I think that you have to limit the amount of exposure for a vast majority of people, and then say we're going to take these certain crops of kids and we're going to rebuild our city. And then people have to stop knocking and hating on each other's players and just start. I support so many kids that don't play for Exodus.
So I'm hearing competitiveness is gone. We're going to try to instill that back. And from the player standpoint, parents/adults are, let's go parents. Parents are still an issue as far as demanding certain things from their kids and not having them be held accountable for their actions here on this level. And the biggest one is that those are the power brokers aren't necessarily sitting down enough to communicate what needs to build New York City back.
Enough? They're not sitting down.
At all. Yeah, you're right. Not sitting down at all to discuss the ills that exist in the New York City basketball culture.
There's kids that's not getting scholarships because people are not being held accountable to get the kids scholarships.
And then who holds the AAU directors and also the high school coaches accountable for their actions?
It's supposed to be each other, but it's like you don't tell on me, I tell on you. Everybody tell on what everything. It's like I'm under a microscope.
So there's no communication. So if I don't know,
it's communication, but it's unwritten rules for certain people. Like it's like this, right? It's like it's a funny thing. If you watch certain shows, I'm like a show buff. You watch Narcos. Narcos is like my show. You watch Narcos, all the other cartels, they were trying to take out Pablo Escobar.
Right. And he knew it.
He knew it.
Right.
Once he got taken out, what happened to them?
Same
you next.
Same thing.
So it's like in New York City, instead of saying, okay, we're going to build a hierarchy and we're going to start from the top down, we're going to just support to build the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, it's not like that. He's at the top, we're going to kill him. And then we're going to rise up, and then somebody was like that.
Like years ago, when his cousin,
up,
when Apache was alive, like Apache came on, and when Apache came on, he came on very strong. And I told Thomas the story. Like he came on very strong, and me and him didn't speak for a little bit because of the way he had his ways. But you know what? At the end of the day, again, that's why I say you always have to be professional in what you do. Like I'm not going to sit there and talk about Apache. I'm going to sit down with Apache, and that's exactly what I did. I called him on the phone and I said, "Listen, dude, we're not going to have this.
Stop this.
Like we're not going to have you trying to come at my players. These are kids that have been with me for a long time." And I remember that night like it was yesterday. And he didn't speak to me for a little bit because he was young when he got in it. And then a year later, he tapped me on the shoulder. We were at Fordham University, and he's like, "I need to speak to you." and we spoke, and ever since then we were the best of friends. Like, we had a mutual respect for each other. We weren't gonna. And then the same thing when Thomas, like, mutual respect. The same conversation we had it. But you know what? Why am I gonna go around talking bad about him? Well, Thomas doing this, Thomas doing that, Thomas is right here. And if you had a conversation with him to let him know what your goals are, maybe y'all could come to some kind of an agreement.
But that would require somebody sitting down with you face to face and having a
Correct.
conversation.
Instead of running around
it's
town.
uncomfortable for people.
Right.
Why?
She came up to me and said, in the gym, I remember like this, said, my first year in this, I'm just blazing. I'm running, who's that? I'm going to get that. I'm going to get every kid my first year. That's my goal.
He was
like this.
Cowboy.
I want to talk to you outside real quick. I'm going to talk to me. Let's go outside and have a conversation. Listen, and then there was a conversation that you build from there.
So that's what's going to bring us back, communication.
Yeah, it's hard. It could bring us back.
Well, start the road to bring it back.
It's something that definitely, but not everybody's going to be as responsive as he was. You know what I'm saying? Like, the bottom line is, you know, he was easy to talk to. There's other people that, you know, they don't understand anything, but, you know. Like,
why? Again, I keep asking why.
That's the
I'm gonna keep asking why.
Because
if we're here to help these young ladies, in this case, young ladies, get to the next level, whatever the next level is, shouldn't we, as the adults, support them in any way, shape, or form? Whether it's goals, if that's our ultimate goal,
you should. But you gotta ask yourself this question: how many people can really look outside of themselves and say, "This is what we're doing for these players, for these families," or say, we're trying to do this to give our program substance. I have so much content, video that I don't put out because I don't want to be seen. I don't want people to take it the wrong way and say,
you're pushing
he's just trying to brag so much. But it's really just me supporting the players in our program, right?
Right.
Because I don't want other people to feel bad about what they are or not doing, right? I think the biggest thing for us as an entire city is to say, like she said earlier, I have a player that this is what she needs. Let's help her, right? Let me put her in this position. And she's going to manage it. Now, if the team she put the kid on would have screwed it up, she's right there to say, look, I gave you this chance. And she's going to hold them accountable. You don't have that. I'll call a director and say, look, I know what you got over there. Let this kid come play on this team. We're going to blow her up. We're going to help her do this, and this. There's a more competitive environment for her. It's going to help her, the city, and now we're good. We're working on some things. We're putting something together. We're going to get there soon. I'm like this. All right.
Got it. So this is a plea out to those that really want to help New York City basketball from the young lady perspective, and also the male perspective, is let's communicate. Let's have a sit down with everyone. Let's have a round table if we can, only just because this is New York City and we're the Mecca, and we really have to put ourselves back in that light, because there are a lot of people that are looking at us as the trendsetter, but right now they're looking at us as
a joke, because they can come in and do what they want to do from other places, and I think that we really need to clean that up. And I know that the directors of the other programs are just as, I'm sure, concerned at times.
No. And I'm calling them out. If they really care about this, as opposed to just being a money grab or a situation where they're just trying to get their clout up, they would be not necessarily here. They would be in a room where everyone's sitting down. Where's 14 high school coaches over here that have influence, and there's 14 AAU programs over here, and everyone's having a conversation about how to solve this thing.
I ask you a realistic question. Why do you feel like people realistically don't want to be in a situation where they have to answer uncomfortable questions? Why do you think? I have my reason why, but I'm asking you, why do you think?
Because it's uncomfortable, and I don't want to be put in a position where I'm be exposed, and my uncomfortable level will be raised.
And I think for a lot of them, it's like this. If we're in a situation like this, and we're talking, and we're being held accountable for things, people are waiting for numbers and stats to come out. You don't have to do that. But I think the hardest part is, are you going to know what I'm doing is really bullshit? Are you going to see it? So let me hide from the fact and kind of just keep weaseling my way through.
Even with the younger teams, where I tell coaches, like, that's where you have to build from. So you have to teach the game. And a lot of these other programs don't want to teach the game. They just want to say, come on, we're having 6th grade tryouts. And they're not going to take my 6th grader who can't play. They're only going to take that 6th grader that can play. So I think all of it is also holding certain people that say that they are coaches or program directors accountable to how much knowledge do you really have about teaching the game. Because you have to, at some point it's not about X's and O's and do you know what a press is, but can you teach someone who can barely dribble a basketball to understand what it's about and how to get to where they need to be?
Like, we are held to a different standard because we are New York.
And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because I think the people here don't understand the legacy of this game from this area. So they don't even know.
That's true.
They haven't done their own homework on who came before them players.
That's what I was saying. The players, the parents, they just don't know. You mentioned certain people's names, and like I said, from that era, and I'm going to name names, but from that era of the Shannon Bobbitt's, the Renee Taylors, Jasmine Lawrence's, those girls, Jen Brown, who's now a college coach, like that era, those girls were so strong back then in New York City. I mean, just incredibly strong. They played for Exodus, they played for me, they played for Liberty Bells. They incredibly a strong group, and the generation of today, they don't know who these girls are.
Yeah, I know.
They don't know who these girls are. Epiphany Prince, they don't know. I was telling a story the other day where Positive Direction won the West 4th Championship against Epiphany Prince. We played them in the semifinals. It was Epiphany Prince, Kia Vaughn, girls that are in the WNBA right now. And little old Positive Direction beat them in the West 4th semifinal game. And kids are looking at me like, who? Until I said Epiphany Prince, Kia Vaughn, because they're WNBA players. But other than that, they didn't know who these other girls were.
I agree with that.
And off of that team, that was my first team coming out of Positive Direction, we had 6 Division I players.
I think the promotion sucks. And I think, I'll tell you one school, not to knock, Christ the King does a good job of promoting their players. And luckily, they've been in a situation where they had Sue, they had Tina, Shamika was probably
Karim Gay, you name it. They had them.
Nice, she was nice. They had a legacy. When you walk into their building, you see the Wall of Fame right there, both boys and girls. I think that we need to do a better job promoting our kids. Both male and female.
You know what that takes, though?
What, other than work?
That takes people in the city actually supporting each other. Because let's say you put something out there to promote the kids, right? And I get a phone call from somebody and say, how good is this?
Right.
Now I'm stuck at a point. I can either...
No, you got to keep it 100.
Promoter or...
No, you got to keep it 100.
And people are killing the New York... Like the New York kids, if a New York kid have one bad game, she's on the rope. She's done.
Yeah. And it's not only that, but too, again, we have to make sure that we have control of that from a director's standpoint, trainers, coaches, because I've heard stories where parents or coaches are calling people that put out those rankings lists. So why isn't my kid? Why is my kid number 2? Why does it matter?
Yeah,
how about we just work on? But it'll become the same thing promoting, because now if we choose to promote a certain kid, why isn't my kid being promoted? Because that's what we decided.
Right.
And that's the issue again, going back to the adult thing. Allow your kid to earn whatever they're earning.
You guys cannot promote.
No.
On that level. And a neutral entity such as myself.
You're stuck if you do that.
Me or you?
If I promote a certain...
You can't. I can. It's not necessarily I. A neutral organization can come in and say, this is the next one. This is the next Sue Bird, whoever it may be.
Or we could all be adults here, and we could as program directors, decide, and high school coaches, who those players are that need to be promoted. Because the bottom line is there's not enough of that on the women's side. I just did that with the high school.
Do they have an all-team, like a first-team Catholic league?
So this year, because I had to go into the meeting talking about Title IX, we started a CHSA all-league. This is the very first year. The boys have been doing it for years. This is the first year the girls are going to have one.
Really? Just 2019?
This is it. 2019.
That's kind of whack.
But again, it takes, but why? It wasn't the league.
It's you guys sitting
in us room. Because now, who's going to have 3 girls on the list? Who's going to have 1 girl on the list? Who's going to have? You have no idea.
You got three because they.
But the bottom line is, if you're the top team, then you deserve 3 or 4 spots. Myself, who came in 3rd place, fighting for 3rd, should only get 1 spot.
Right.
Maybe not even none, depending on where you are in the mix, but. We did the right thing. Anybody 3rd place down got 1 pick. But that's the issue. Like, we're
But
trying
what
to make
happens if a
everybody
kid
happy.
What happens if somebody pick a kid on their team just to have somebody on their team on there?
Right.
And you're like, you know she's not that good.
Like
that's
I'll give my
right.
spot to you because you
that
got three.
and that should be, that discussion should be okay. If we can get those discussions, well, you had this kid, but we had this kid, okay.
Like, there's certain players that, as a coach, if you sit there and you say that, I'm sorry, we played last night. Celeste Taylor is one of the best players around. Like, country, she's good. She's very good. The kid Nat from Christ the King, she's very good. As a coach, as an AAU coach, a high school coach, you can't turn around and say that those kids don't deserve to get certain things that they get. Because if that's the case, if that's what you're sitting there saying, you don't belong.
And we say this all the time, if you say that those kids aren't good, then what are you saying about New York?
Right.
Because if those kids aren't good, then...
So if collectively as organizations, we couldn't sit down this upcoming year and say, just off the top of your head, okay, who are the kids we're going to promote, and that is not one of those kids, then you don't belong sitting at the table. If you're trying to fight for your kid instead of a kid of that caliber, then you don't belong at the table, and that's the issue. There are certain program directors and coaches that don't belong at the table because you're not looking at the big picture.
They're trying to build their brand over
the brand.
Correct.
And the brand is New York City.
New York City.
And it's hard for people to really swallow that pill.
Right.
Versus if you talk to a kid and say, you know, where you going with your team this spring, summer, and they'll tell you, and the coach will say they're at this bracket, how much are you really going to service that kid versus if you just say, you know what, I helped you get here.
Right.
We got you to this point. Now go get the rest of what you need, and I'm going to take these three, and we're going to help them get to that point. So now I have time to focus on them instead of medicating you.
Got it. Well, I want to take this opportunity and thank you guys for stopping by.
Appreciate it.
This is something rare. We have an AAU director. You serve both purposes. You actually have three purposes. You're a young lady, program director, and a high school coach. So I want to thank you, all three of you, for coming by, coming by and to the MECCA podcast, and hopefully some of you guys will heed the words and hopefully come down and have a roundtable discussion of how we can solve New York City basketball on the young lady side. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We out of here.